Hey guys, so we're starting to dive deeper into Roo and the additional functionality that we built into it for you automation professionals building automation scenarios. And let me walk you through a use case, a business case, and see how Roo addresses our different needs. So let's say we have a live event. We have a landing page like this beautifully basic landing page that I built that takes in your details, name, last name, and email. Phone is optional. We'll leave it out for now. And let's also say that this registers you to the event. Now, when does the event take place? We actually have an Airtable that holds the different occasions for the different events because we don't want to rebuild the automation every time and change the schedule and change the link. We actually want to have one database, and we love Airtable. We want to have one database where all our events are stored, and whenever someone registers through our landing page, it will actually go to Airtable, pull the date for the next meeting, pull the meeting ID, and do the actual registration process. Okay, this is pretty standard procedure that we want to do when we want to manage our data and we want to have several events and not have to go through modifying the automation each time we want to do that. So our basic premise is that we have a landing page for an event that takes place at a specific day. We have the meeting ID here also auto-generated by the automation and saved here. This is the actual Zoom meeting ID. And what we want to have done is have people register on this landing page, and have actually pull the next event, register us to that. That will create the join URL. This is the URL that we want to save and actually use Roo to shorten it and also add some more logic to it. All right. So before we run it, let me walk you through the scenario, what we want to do, and we'll also touch upon the extra functionality. So what we have here, our trigger is a webhook. Our landing page triggers a webhook that sends the information, the details that were entered. We actually go into Airtable and search for the next event inside Airtable. I won't go into it because this is automation with Airtable. Obviously, if you want to know more about that, we can help you with that as well. Then we go into Zoom and create a meeting registrant for the specific meeting that we want to register people to. All right, so it's the specific meeting ID that we pull out of here. Now, and now the fun begins. All right, because now we have the join URL, which is what we want to shorten, and we call Roo and we say, hey, create a URL, create a short URL. Take this join URL that Zoom created and actually shorten it using Roo. Okay, but we don't want to stop there because we want to know whenever someone clicked on the link to join our event. Maybe we want to store that in a dashboard in some sort of database. Maybe we want to put a note or an activity in our CRM. Hey, call this guy, he's interested. Let's say we're selling something, or want to move them somewhere else in the journey. So we have the add webhook action, which we discussed in the first video. I went over it. Now we want to trigger a make webhook whenever someone clicks on our short URL. All right. So we add the add webhook action. We give it the short URL that was created in the create URL action by Roo. So what we're actually saying is take this short URL and put a webhook on it. So whenever someone clicks it, trigger a call on the server side at the back end to our webhook. Our webhook is also a make webhook, which will handle the actual process of knowing who clicked and registering it and saving it in our database. So we have our make webhook. We put the method as post because we like that. Let's say we want to add the metadata of how many times they clicked on it. We don't touch the headers. We don't touch the cursing. We put a JSON body, and we put in a very short, very simple JSON that has a first name parameter, a last name parameter, and an email, and actually pulls those from the registration. So their source is the webhook. So these are actually the details of the person who registered. Okay, so what happens now is that whenever someone clicks on their specific join URL, other than going into the actual meeting, following through to the link to the join URL, what will happen is on the back end, on the server side, we'll get a webhook triggered with all their details. So we'll know this specific person, this name, and this email. They actually clicked on the link to join the meeting. Take that into your CRM, take that into your database, send a follow-up WhatsApp message or SMS message. Hey, how was the meeting? Let's talk. And you can all do that through the webhook. But we don't want to stop there because we have another thing called schedule redirect. And before diving into schedule redirect, let me give you a bit of our what we thought about when we added this feature to Rue. Let's say in this specific case, we have an event. It takes place at a date and a time. Now, it's a Zoom event, and obviously people register all the time, and they can obviously register and click on their link way before the meeting starts. What will happen with a regular URL or regular short URL that doesn't have the root power in it is that they'll go to they'll be redirected to the Zoom meeting, the actual Zoom meeting that hasn't taken place yet. So what they see is just a window from Zoom, like this meeting hasn't started yet. But in our mind, this is a waste, because let's say that these people click on the link before. I don't want to just send them to an empty place. I want to send them to maybe some tutorials, some videos, something that they'll see and warm up and kind of get to know what we're talking about. Maybe we're selling something in that meeting, but we want to educate them, nurture them, and we want to do that if they click on the link way before. So if they click on the link like an hour before or maybe even earlier, we'll actually want to redirect them to some sort of content page, see videos, do something, but interact with us in a way that's meaningful. If they click on the link when the meeting starts or 15 minutes before the actual event starts, let's direct them to Zoom, because maybe we have a waiting room there and we're kind of doing the pre-event stuff. And if obviously if they click on the link during when the meeting started, we want to direct them to the meeting as well. But if they click on the link when the meeting has ended, there's no point in putting them back and sending them back into Zoom and seeing that the meeting has already ended. Their leads or their potential customers, we already pay for the acquisition and for the registration. Don't just send them to a Zoom that's saying, hey, this meeting has ended. Send them to a registration page saying, whoops, you missed this event, but hey, we have another one coming up. Register to that one as well. So this is kind of the logic that we put into our thought about schedule redirect. Really make the link automatically direct to whatever destination you want based on a schedule, based on the time. Now, going back to our Airtable, we know when the meeting starts. We know its duration. We know when is the time that for all of these checkpoints that I said, like an hour before, direct them to content. When the meeting starts or a little bit before that, direct them to the actual Zoom meeting. And when the meeting ends, direct them to the registration page again. So this is what schedule redirect does. Let me dive into it. So we give it the short URL that create URL has output for us. And here we can build a schedule. Now, building a schedule is really simple. You just add an item. Each item that you add here will have the timestamp and the destination URL. Okay? So what we actually did now is we've built a schedule that is composed of 3 parts. Now this, for the first thing that we said, if they register on the link an hour or up to 15 minutes before the event has started, then direct them to our content, right? In this case, to our podcast page, watch a video, listen to a podcast, whatever. We need the timestamp here in Unix format. So what we're actually doing is taking the start time, subtracting 1 hour. We have the start time from Zoom. Subtract 1 hour from that. Okay. Format that into a Unix timestamp. So you have format date. These are all inline built-in functions that make gives us. So add hours is an internal function. We subtract 1 hour from the start time of the event. We format it to Unix timestamp. In this case, also in Israel time zone. And we say at this point, when someone clicks at this point of time and going forward, don't direct them to the join URL, direct them to our podcast. Okay? We have the same thing with minus 15 minutes before the event starts. So now we have add minutes, an additional schedule that says subtract actually 15 minutes, so add a minus 15 minutes to the start time, format that into Unix timestamp, and at that point, this same link that they have in their email or their WhatsApp or whatever, if they click it now, it will direct them to Zoom, and they'll wait for our event, maybe have some pre-event stuff. But we're saying when they click on that right before the meeting starts, 15 minutes or less before the meeting starts, direct them to the actual join URL. Now, if we take the end time of the meeting, let's say we have take the start time of the meeting. If they want to join more than 30 minutes after the meeting has already started, there's no point in that. Let's say it's a sales webinar or somewhere we're introducing our product. They wouldn't know what we're talking about, right? So at that point, if someone clicks on the link 30 minutes or more after the event has started, I'm now taking them back to the registration page. Okay, so I'm telling them, and that page they'll see, oops, you missed this event, register to our next one. And we'll obviously have another one in our calendar, in our schedule, and they can register to it. So the same link that they have in their email or WhatsApp or SMS or wherever you distribute their own private join URL, it changes as time passes. So you always know when they click on the link, they'll be redirected to where you want them to be. Now, people already do that by having the link go through a make and having it trigger a make webhook, and in the webhook and checking everything and doing that in webhook response. We actually made that an integral part of the actually short URL that Root creates for you. Okay, so this is the mindset and the thought behind scheduled URL. Let's see this entire chain in action. So I'll run the scenario once so we'll have a visual representation of it. See it work. We have here our landing page. So let's say I leave my details. Say this one. This one I haven't used yet. Now, the moment I press sign me up, that will trigger the make webhook. Let's see that. So our webhook was triggered. You'll see I have all the details here. We pull the event from Airtable. We create the registration for all our details. We have the join URL. First thing we do is tell Rue, listen, take this long URL, shorten it. That gave us this URL. When we click on it, it will go to Zoom. Now we're saying add a webhook to this specific short URL. Call this endpoint with as a post with this content in JSON format. So you see, you're actually seeing all my details here, and add a schedule. So for the same short URL, add a schedule that's composed of 3 steps. First, to our podcast, this is Unix timestamp, so it's a bit hard to see, but if you take that in the translator, you see it's 1 hour before the event starts. Direct them to our podcast page. 15 minutes before, that's the second timestamp, direct them to the actual join URL. And 30 minutes after the event has started, direct them back to the registration page. So this is, we've actually created here the sequence that we talked about. Now our short URL, our URL, is a very smart one. It can direct you to the destination varying on the actual, when the link was clicked. And it can also trigger a webhook on the back end saying, listen, this guy, he clicked on our link, and we have the payload with all these details. We can update that in the CRM as well. Now, this is what these 3 actions do: create URL, add webhook, and schedule redirect. And we've actually incorporated all 3 into the create URL action. So the create URL action can be much smarter than just creating a short URL, than just doing what you're seeing here of just having a URL. So this one action actually does what all these 3 do. Sorry. If I open it, you'll see that it has the join URL. But what we actually did here is turn on show advanced settings. Let me show you what it looks like when you do it for the first time. So we have the URL, the join URL here. If I turn on show advanced settings, what you'll see, the folder ID, disregard that for now. But you see I have an action to add webhook, yes, no, schedule redirect, yes, no, and click on redirect, which we haven't talked about yet. Each of these actions, when I turn it on, or these power-ups and advanced functionality, I can actually configure them, just like I do on the separate actions themselves. So you have that for add webhook, you have that for the schedule redirect. You can create the schedule here. Okay, so we have a timestamp and a destination URL, exactly like you would do it in the standalone action. And we have the click count redirect, which you haven't discussed yet, which actually tells me, listen, after this number of clicks, redirect the link to somewhere else. So we'll do a separate video on that. It's not related to this use case. I can turn on any of these. I can have all 3 turned on. I have to know what I'm doing, obviously, but a rule lets you add a webhook and a schedule redirect and a click on redirect, or just a combination of these 3 in one action. So if I go back here and I show you what we've done, we turn on add webhook, and we actually put in the exact same information that we have for when we had the add webhook action. So we have the endpoint, the method, the metadata if we want it, yes or no, and actually the request content. All right. And for schedule redirect, we have the same thing. So we have -1 hour, do this, -15 minutes, do that, plus 30 minutes, do this. So if I run this now, I'll disable this path and enable this one, and I'll run this. I'll go back to my landing page. I'll refresh it. I'll re-enter my details. I'll actually put in another email. And now what you'll see is we have the same stages of Airtable and Zoom, and we have one action on Make that does everything that these three all did, right? So we have the URL, we for the basic URL that we want to shorten. We have the webhook here. We have the schedule here, and it actually doing exactly the same thing. So we did everything. We're saving on operations, and we're actually simplifying our scenario by having all three into one. So to recap, in this video we actually went over how to create a basic URL, but also how to make it a smarter URL by incorporating webhooks and schedules into the URL.